Hi everyone, welcome to I'm Alright. My name's Lisa Robertson and this is a YouTube channel that's designed to help new and aspiring writers get the skill set and the mindset help they need to take their writing to the next level. I'm an editorial director. I'm also a writer of fiction and nonfiction, so I have a lot of information that I'm really excited to be able to share with everyone. We're in the middle of a week-long series. This is day 3, and the series is on kind of the 7 critical elements to a successful novel. What I mean by that is if these 7 things are good, your novel's going to be good almost by default. So far we've covered plot and setting, and today we're tackling something that I think is even more important than those 2 things, and that is characters. The reason I think characters are so critical to your novel's success is because if your characters are good, if you have created believable, rootable, exciting characters that your readers either love or love to hate, they're going to stick with your novel even if the plot goes off the rails for a little bit or there are problems elsewhere. They are going to stick with you because you've created characters that they care about. Okay, that's why it's so critically important. I think I could do a whole series on how to create memorable characters, and I think I'm probably going to do that. But today I want to talk about character archetypes, which is extremely hard to say. Character archetypes. And what I mean by that is I think there are, for me, 8 characters that every novel needs in order to be a success. So I'm going to tell you what those 8 characters are, and I'm going to give you an example from what I think is the best novel ever written, which is To Kill a Mockingbird. One thing before I get started, I want you to know it doesn't have to be 8 separate characters. There are times, quite often, when one character can inhabit 2 of these kind of archetypal roles, okay? And I'll give you an example of that in the ones that we go over as well, okay? So the first one I'm going to go over is what I call, or I think what everybody calls kind of, is the Everyman. And what that is that's kind of your narrator. That's your audience's voice. It's the lens that they see the story through. How the Everyman sees and feels about what's going on is how the audience kind of automatically sees and feels how it's going on as well. They can inhabit that narrator or Everyman's role. Okay? And sometimes the Everyman is the protagonist. Sometimes it's a hero. Some of these other things that we'll talk about, but not every time. The Everyman, like I said, it's like the Greek chorus. It's the audience. It takes the place of the audience. And in To Kill a Mockingbird, the Everyman is Scout. Okay, Scout is who we experience the story through Scout's eyes. And for anyone who doesn't know the story of To Kill a Mockingbird, what the heck is wrong with you? How can you be a writer and not know the story? But in case that you don't, Scout is a little girl, and she goes, I think, from like 6 to 9 or 10 in the novel, and she is experiencing all these horrible things, and we experience them with her. She sees racism, she sees murder, she sees social injustice. All these things are happening, and they're filtered through her eyes, and that's how we experience it as well. And because she is so memorable and open and kind, that's how we view the characters around her. Okay, so that's Scout, who is the Everyman, right? Every woman, every child, everybody in the novel. The next archetype we're going to talk about is the hero. And the hero in To Kill a Mockingbird is, of course, Atticus Finch, who is Scout's dad. He is a lawyer. He has been tasked with saving a man who he knows is innocent from a crime that he's going to be executed, and he knows he's not going to be able to save him. That is Atticus's story, and every hero has a story like that. They have a journey. They have obstacles they have to overcome. They have a situation that they need to navigate, right? And at their heart, no matter how flawed they are, and all good heroes are flawed, they are not just cartoon cutouts of a perfect person. They're flawed, but they're deep down inherently a good person that you can root for. You want good things to happen. You want them to win. You want them to succeed. Okay, that's what a hero is. Harry Potter is another example of a hero, right? They are someone who is faced with great odds. They have a journey. They have goals. They have motivations. And they have someone that they are in direct opposition to. And in To Kill a Mockingbird, that villain, who is the person who in direct opposition to our hero is Bob Ewell. Bob Ewell is responsible for putting a man on trial that he knows is not guilty, and he's done it out of just pure hatred and racism and ego, and he does violent, horrible things throughout the novel. But I think it's important to note that what makes Bob a good villain, if not a good person, is that you understand why he is the way he is. You don't agree with it. You know, he is ignorant and awful and violent and horrible, but he is also a product of his environment. Is it any surprise that Bob Ewell is who he is? He's not Snidely Whiplash twirling a mustache. He's not a cartoon either. He is a product of the world that he lives in. He is poor. He is uneducated. He is raising all these children, and he feels that he's been slighted, and he will do anything in order to save his family's reputation, including in all the things that he does in the novel, you know. Get this person on trial, attack children. He's awful, you know, but he's also believable. And there's also a little bit of humanity in there. You know, that's what makes Bob a good villain. So now we've covered the everyman, the hero, and the villain. The next out of our 8 is something that we can call the mentor. Okay, the mentor is usually an older character to the everyman or the hero, and it's the person who they learn from. Someone that their life is improved because of their relationship with them, right? Think Gandalf, think Dumbledore, again, for other examples. In To Kill a Mockingbird, the example of this mentor who provides wisdom and guidance for, in this case, Scout, our everyman character, is there's 2 in the novel, okay? There's Miss Maudie, their neighbor, and also Calpurnia, who is their maid. And throughout the novel, Miss Maudie really, she's so kind and giving and such a good Christian, even though she's not considered one by kind of the Bible thumpers that she's around, right? She is just a good and giving person, and she's intelligent, and she speaks to the children with such compassion, and she never talks down to them. You know, she treats them as equals, and she really helps Scout throughout the novel understand her father and understand what the stakes that her father is dealing with, right? So she's a mentor to Scout throughout the novel. Calpurnia's role as a mentor is more towards the end, where Calpurnia, through her dignity and grace and intelligence that she inhabits, really teaches Scout that there's more to her world than she sees, and there's a lot of injustice in the world that as she's experienced it so far. And Calpurnia represents people who are treated unfairly just because of the color of their skin. And she teaches Scout a lot about compassion and about the inherent, you know, ills of bigotry, okay? So that's the mentor character. Another important character archetype throughout stories, some things that you should look for in your novels, and also try to identify them in other novels that you read, would be the best friend or sidekick. This is a person, it's a little different than the mentor to the main character. This person is a peer. There's someone that the main character can speak to freely, bounce ideas off of. We can there's give and take, and there's camaraderie there, and it gives that person someone they can speak to as a peer rather than as a subservient person, as they have to automatically do with the mentor. And in To Kill a Mockingbird, that best friend role is filled by Jim, who's Scout's brother. Now, he's a little older and a little wiser, and sometimes I wouldn't think he would consider himself a peer, but they really have that kind of best friend relationship in addition to that sibling relationship. The next character archetype I want to discuss with you would be, you can call it a lot of different things. You can call it the fool, the comic relief, the foil. This is kind of not necessarily a dumb character, even though we call it a fool. It's more like just a lighthearted character that brings levity and frivolity and a lightness to what can be a very heavy story. They're really good for scene sequels, right? If you go through a heavy revelatory scene, and there's so many of them in To Kill a Mockingbird, it's great to bring in a character like Dill, who is always up to mischief and always has a different take on things, and he represents that kind of comic relief role in that novel. Okay, so we have covered so far I'm just trying to keep track of them in my head too. I'm sorry. The everyman, the hero, the villain, the mentor, the best friend or sidekick, and the fool. Okay, so that's 6. The next character we're going to talk about is the innocent. And again, there are 2 things that could be considered the innocent in To Kill a Mockingbird. The first is Tom Robinson. Tom Robinson is literally and figuratively innocent of the crime that he's been accused of. He is a martyr for a cause. He is doomed and tragic from the beginning of the novel. We know that Atticus is not going to be able to save him. An innocent character, another one from literature that's a good one to you can kind of see with, is Beth March from Little Women and Prim from the Hunger Games. They represent someone who is too good for the world that they are living in, right? And they're usually doomed and tragic and cannon fodder, and there's something about them that is better than the world that they live in. And that's what Tom Robinson represents. The other innocent character in To Kill a Mockingbird for me is Boo Radley. Again, Boo is kind and misunderstood. He is misperceived as this violent, horrible man and shrouded in mystery, but he's really childlike and innocent and giving and good and loves these children so much and sacrifices so much for them, right? So, and he's the mockingbird in the title, right? He is the innocent in the story in the same way that Tom inhabits that role. So now we've covered, the next character we're going to cover is the love interest. This is a repeat from another character in the story. Miss Maudie is the love interest to Atticus in this story. Obviously this isn't a strong love story. That's not what the story is about, but I think it's pretty heavily implied. The story is told through Scout's eyes, so they don't get into it in any kind of specific way, that Atticus and Maudie are more than friends, right? And every good hero needs a heroine, right? And obviously this is much more pronounced in other novels, and I don't think I need to tell you what role a love interest serves, other than to give a more well-rounded presentation of that character and show and those love stories can be as chaste or as explicit as your story lets them be. But if they're done well, they're really illuminating as to who that character is when they are interacting with someone that they love or want or need in that way. Okay? The last character archetype I'm going to talk about is the catalyst. And what the catalyst is they are someone who causes. They're a catalyst for the action, right? The plot would not move forward in the way that it does. The outcome would not be the same. The major events, the turning points in the novel would not happen without the catalyst, either what they do or how they act or a decision, good or bad, that they make. In To Kill a Mockingbird, Mayella Ewell, Bob's daughter, is the catalyst. None of the things in this story would have happened if Mayella hadn't made the decisions that she made, right? Mayella is a tragic figure. She's not a victim, but she's not a villain either. She's misguided and lonely and desperate and does something really stupid that sets into motion things that she could never have anticipated. And so that makes her the catalyst to the action in the story of To Kill a Mockingbird. That is the 8 archetypes of a successful novel. Again, look through your novel and see if you can identify who yours are. Look through novels that you love and see if you can pick out these characters, because they really serve a purpose and they really propel your novel along in really important and meaningful ways. That's all I have for you today. We'll be back tomorrow with another video in this series. Thanks. Bye.